And away we go. Episode 1151 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. And we as Washington Commanders fans are in the midst of being happy, but also needing to be focused. There is a balance that we need to be striking right now. Happy because our team won its regular season opener, right? 21-6 over the New York Giants at Northwest Stadium on Sunday afternoon, but needing to be focused because the Commanders' next game is in 2 days. Commanders at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football at 8:15. One of the best parts about your NFL team winning is that you're supposed to get at least a week to enjoy the win. Not in this case. Our team won, but now is very much in preparation mode with a game on Thursday night. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Coming up on the show, a lot on the Commanders. Next segment, discussion of how to take the win over the Giants. So the Commanders' many penalties in the game, what the team is facing, and Packers edge defender Micah Parsons this Thursday night, and more off comments from head coach Dan Quinn during his day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon. The following segment, analysis of the Commanders' offense in the win over the Giants, including Jayden Daniels' remarkable record as an NFL quarterback, what advanced stats say about the performances of Daniels and running back Jacory Croskey-Merritt, the impact of receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., and how the Commanders' two new starting offensive tackles, Laremy, Tunsil, and Josh Conerly did. And the segment after that, analysis of the Commanders' defense in the win over the Giants, including the high-level performance by the defensive line and the extent to which newcomers did well. By the way, the Commanders on Monday afternoon did put out an injury report for this game at the Packers. So the Commanders on Monday conducted a walkthrough as opposed to a true practice. The injury report is an estimation of what would have been the case with a true practice. The Commanders listed 7 players on the injury report. Punter Tress Way was designated as not practicing due to his back. He got hurt during the win over the Giants. So receiver Noah Brown was designated as a limited participant in practice due to a knee. Running back Austin Eckler was designated as a limited participant in practice due to a shoulder, and then 4 players were designated as full participants in practice despite each dealing with an ailment of some kind. Quarterback Jayden Daniels, right wrist; tight end John Bates, shoulder; interior defensive lineman Deron Payne, calf; edge defender Dietrich Wise Jr., knee. Not ideal seeing Jayden Daniels on the injury report, but he was designated as a full participant. And also on the show, I'll talk Nationals. They now are 6-1 this month, a 15-7 win at the Miami Marlins on Monday evening. The Nats smashed 19 hits, 4 home runs, 4 doubles, and 11 singles. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback on the Commanders off the win over the Giants from Joe on X. Writes Joe, it's incredible getting into 3rd and long, yet feeling like we have a better than 50-50 chance of picking up the first down is still taking some getting used to. JD5's worst day is still so good. Now we have Deebo, Bill, a better D, and wait till Terry gets all the way back. Exciting times. Thank you for that, Joe. From Spencer on X, right, Spencer, the defense was the best of the Witt era by far. JD5 missed some stuff, and officials pounded us on penalties. I think the officials wanted the Giants to win as much as Brady seemed to. God, he's horrible. Thank you for that, Spencer. Well, the officials did miss an obvious face mask penalty by corner Noah Igbenogany, so the officiating wasn't entirely anti-Commanders. I may be in the minority on this, but I like Tom Brady as a broadcaster. Is that wrong? Am I way off with that opinion? I think that Brady says interesting things. He has a sense of humor, doesn't take himself too seriously. Like, speaking of Noah Igbenogany, did you notice when Brady during the game completely butchered saying Noah Igbenogany's last name? Brady made fun of himself for that. That was good. But the most significant thing with Brady as a broadcaster to me is that he is Tom Brady. He is the GOAT, the greatest quarterback in NFL history. So what he says carries a weight that so few in sports broadcasting can ever have. That kind of credibility is special. It's like Jim Palmer when he serves as the analyst for Orioles games on MASN. And Palmer is the greatest pitcher in Orioles history and is one of the best pitchers in MLB history. So what he says, at least to me as a viewer, holds a significance that you don't get from an ex-player who is just a so-so player. I feel the same way with Ryan Zimmerman when he occasionally sits in on a MASN telecast of a Nats game. Zimmerman is one of the best players in Nats history. He was a franchise third baseman for years. What he says during games matters. Same thing with Tom Brady, at least to me. Here's a question. Who will be and who could be the next prominent ex-Washington player who becomes a high-level analyst for telecasts of NFL games. Joe Theismann did Sunday Night Football on ESPN for years. Sonny Jurgensen did some work for CBS. Adam Archuleta has worked for CBS for a while now, though he's not really a prominent ex-Washington player, right? My good friend Chris Cooley, had he really gone for it, absolutely could have become a big-time NFL in-game analyst. I'd say the same thing about D'Angelo Hall, but he now seems more interested in coaching. Who could be the next prominent ex-Washington player who becomes a high-level analyst for national telecasts of NFL games? You may think that I'm joking with what I'm about to say, but I'm not joking. Given that former quarterbacks tend to make for the best in-game analysts for telecasts of NFL games, I think that two former Washington quarterbacks who could do very well in this role if they wanted to are you-know-who and Taylor Heinicke. And I'm serious. Two of the most polarizing quarterbacks in Washington history, yes, but two really smart guys. Each guy has a sense of humor. I could see you-know-who and Taylor Heinicke, you-know-who and Tay-Tay, each doing well as an in-game analyst for telecasts of NFL games. It just would be nice to have one of our guys in that role instead of all of these other guys associated with other teams. Although I don't know how much you-know-who is one of our guys anymore. But Taylor Heinicke, he should always be one of our guys, right? With how much his time with Washington reinvigorated his NFL career. All right, Catering by Uptown. It provides catering to perfection. Whatever event you're planning, especially a wedding, visit cateringbyuptown.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you and see what Catering by Uptown can do for you. If you are planning a wedding and you're searching for answers, you're searching for direction, for guidance, contact Catering by Uptown. Go to cateringbyuptown.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you and see what Catering by Uptown can do for you. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras. So they are great Commanders fans, loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style and thus takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you go to cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you could set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast. If you're not already doing that, subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. The Commanders are beginning their 2025 regular season with 2 games in 5 days. Sunday afternoon, the 21-6 win over the New York Giants at Northwest Stadium. This Thursday night, a game at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football at 8:15. The Packers ripped the Detroit Lions 27-13 on Sunday. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, he did a virtual press conference early Monday afternoon on a Monday that was a combo Victory Monday, Tell the Truth Monday, and Wednesday. Victory Monday because the team won on Sunday. Tell the Truth Monday because that's a Dan Quinn thing, right? Honesty on a Monday about the good and the bad from the game on Sunday. And Wednesday because the Commanders treated Monday like a Wednesday from a preparation standpoint, given that they're playing on Thursday night. My overall take with the Commanders' win over the Giants on Sunday afternoon is that the Commanders were far from at their best and yet still won by 15 points and were in control the entire game is maybe the greatest sign yet of the progress that has been made by the team. We on Monday afternoon had this back and forth between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
Obviously, a lot of the players were happy about the win, but in the same breath, some of the players weren't really happy with the overall performance with the penalties and some missed opportunities. What does that tell you about that group collectively of maybe the standard, the expectation is kind of moved a little bit?
I'd say, man, it's a really, close and connected team. And so, yeah, they have, really high standards from within the locker room of how we want to go perform. There's going to be mistakes, Scott, especially early in the season. It's how quickly can you get back to being right? And you want to continue to build on that to go. So I expected some mistakes. I expected some of that to happen, a missed tackle or a foul. But we want to eliminate them, man. You're not going to play the perfect game. So I did like where, hey, you fought back and go. I hated the way we finished the half where we didn't get points. I loved the way we finished the game, in a winning time moment to, take all the, air out of the clock. And that was a big deal for us. So in most games, there's things you want to do better and do differently. It's nice to have a game under our belt. Hey, these are the lessons. How are we going to grow from them? And we like doing that and talking about them as well.
So a short week here. What's the message to the team? And also, in terms of this Packers game, just the approach and the mentality, knowing, yes, it's a short week, but it's also early in the season where the bumps and bruises on a short week may be more magnified middle of the season, late in the season.
Yeah, we really have a plan for how we want to go after the games, whether it's short or long or night or day and all of those. So as far as the speed, you don't see a lot of that in practice this week, Scott, with the quick turnaround. So you try to manage, that on the early days and you start building it up as you get closer to the game. But we did have some time before we began our Giants prep to begin on Green Bay. We didn't do any of that with the players, so that'll be their first exposure today. In their mind, today is like a Wednesday, tomorrow's like a Thursday, and the next day is like a Friday. So we just speed up the learning for them. But there's a process to go through. We know what it looks like, how to get there, and now it's time to go put it into effect.
Well, we heard Dan Quinn in his first answer there bring up the hideous ending to the first half for the Commanders on Sunday afternoon on a 3rd and 1 for the Commanders at the Giants 4 with 7 seconds left in the second quarter. Quarterback Jayden Daniels committed a 10-yard intentional grounding penalty, resulting in a runoff that ended the first half. The Commanders could do nothing about this because they had already used all 3 of their first half timeouts, and so the Commanders got no points on that drive. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standing and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Dan, I was just wondering, what did you think of in review the end of the first half sequence from when you guys called the last timeout to what happened on the last play where Jayden gets called for the penalty?
Yeah, so in that space on the first one, we want to make sure when we're getting close, you can get 2 plays off for sure. And then as it gets closer between a third down and a first down, what we would have preferred to do in that scenario is to go clock it. And then if you have a first down, do it quickly. And if it goes into where it's going to be, a third down play, you can do it a little more slowly, knowing that's going to be the last play of the half. So we just missed it, Ben. And it was a bummer for us to leave 3 points there. We've worked some scenarios similar to that one, but not that exact one. But, yeah, we just missed it, man. And that falls on me of not having the guys ready to go execute at that spot.
Good for Dan Quinn for taking ownership of that. But, look, this was a bad moment, okay? It's not the end of the world. It was a moment that proved that Jayden Daniels is, in fact, human. But, yeah, way too many penalties for the Commanders on Sunday afternoon. 12 accepted penalties for 89 yards. 6 of the penalties were by the offense. 5 of the penalties were by the defense. 1 of the penalties was by special teams. And the Commanders had 2 penalties that were declined, 1 on offense and 1 on defense. So 12 accepted penalties, but 14 total penalties. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Liam Griffin of the Washington Times and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Coach. Just curious, after watching the film, what did you see from those penalties on Sunday, and how do you go about cleaning those up on a short week?
Yeah, you want to show them all, Liam, first off. The ones that are physical and look at it, like, for instance, like a roughing, can we, lower our hands so that wouldn't happen? Those ones, you just coach your way through. The ones that are the pre-snap ones, we had an aligned offsides on offense. We had a false start. I do like when I see people come back, and show resilience. For instance, Austin had an offsides and came back to make an epic conversion. Zach had an offsides, came back to make a good touchdown catch. So I don't like them, Liam, and I show them to to try to coach us out of them, especially the pre-snap ones. But I do like seeing resilience for people, even if it's a drop pass. I thought Jalen Lane kind of showed that as well. There was a drop, and he came back to make a conversion later. Those are things I'm looking for in the game as well. But for sure, to be lapped in penalties 2-1, not what we're looking for, man.
No, it's not. And what about Micah? How are the Commanders going to do against Micah on Thursday night? The Dallas Cowboys on August 28th traded edge defender Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers for interior defensive lineman Kenny Clark and first-round picks in the 2026 and 2027 NFL drafts. The Cowboys took Parsons with the number 12 overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft out of Penn State. Dan Quinn was the Cowboys defensive coordinator from January 2021 to February 2024, so he was Parsons' defensive coordinator for his first 3 NFL seasons, 2021 through 2023. We, on Monday afternoon, had this back and forth between Commanders insider Tom Schad of the Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
Shifting focus to Green Bay, I wanted to ask first about Micah. What was your reaction to that trade?
I was surprised that he was traded, and I had an absolute blast coaching him. So he, brings out the mad scientist in you to see, all right, what if he was here, and how would you feature him, and what about over here? He was a player that could learn, things really quickly. But I was surprised, that he went, outside the division, I would say.
And what is the toughest thing about preparing for him, especially on a short week? Speed.
He's, in Dallas, he was one of our fastest players. So that's the hardest thing to simulate, for an offensive tackle. The first couple, 2 or 3 steps, it's not at a, speed that's, you can simulate in a practice rep. So that would be like early on. I think there's been some rushes that he could surprise some people if you haven't faced him, knowing that he can really jump off the ball.
Micah Parsons in the win over the Lions on Sunday played on 45% of the Packers' defensive snaps. He had a sack, though he, per Pro Football Focus, had just 2 pressures over 23 pass rush snaps. If you run your own business, here's a game changer. Square. Square is an all-in-one business partner that makes your day-to-day easier. Think of Square as the business version of a Deebo Samuel or an Austin Eckler, an all-purpose weapon that can impact things in a variety of ways. So Square offers tools for every part of your business, from point-of-sale systems and payments to inventory and customer tools. Square brings everything together in one simple platform so you can stay organized, sell anywhere, and keep things moving. Square is easy to use. If you're not technology savvy, no problem. The software is incredibly straightforward and intuitive. You don't need special training. You could just set up Square and start taking payments quickly. Square is flexible. It adjusts to what you need. With Square, you choose the tools that you need and you use them when you want. No long-term contracts required. You could sell in person or online from one location or several. Square is built to move with you and adapt as your business grows. Square keeps up so you don't have to slow down. Get everything you need to run and grow your business without any long-term commitments. And here's a great deal. You can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/Galdi. That's SQUARE.com/GO/GALDI. You can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/Galdi. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today. I am not a big fan of judging quarterbacks by their records, but consider this now with the Commanders' Jayden Daniels. His record with the team in terms of regular season and postseason games is 15-6. 12-5 last regular season, 2-1 last postseason, 1-0 this regular season off the 21-6 win over the New York Giants at Northwest Stadium this past Sunday afternoon. Think about that. 15-6. 15 wins in 21 games. We have not seen that kind of success by a Washington quarterback since Mark Rippon was the Redskins QB1. He, over the 1989 through 1992 seasons, went 39-17 in regular season games and 5-2 in postseason games. Jayden Daniels on Sunday afternoon was not perfect. He was guilty of some inaccuracy. He took 3 sacks. He committed that really bad intentional grounding penalty on the final snap of the second quarter, but he overall played well. Daniels for the game had an overall grade grade per Pro Football Focus of 83.9. That's very good. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average. Daniels for the game as of games through Sunday had a total QBR per ESPN of 55.1. That's not great, but that's not bad. QBR is on a scale of 0 to 100. Daniels averaged 7.77 yards per pass attempt and 12.26 yards per completion. Those stats are good. And leading the Commanders on Sunday afternoon in receptions, receiving yards, and targets was receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., who excelled in his Commanders regular season debut. He had 7 receptions for 77 yards on 10 targets and had 1 carry for 19 yards and a touchdown. He played on 77% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. He also had 2 kickoff returns, a 21-yard return of the game-opening kickoff and a 29-yard return in the second quarter. During Commanders head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
With Deebo, I asked you about him last night, but I'm curious after watching the film, the impact that you saw him make, just even on plays where he wasn't involved, and how the defense had to pay attention to him. Was it more or about what you expected? And there.
Yeah, it was about what I expected because it was touches on kickoff return and runs and, passes. And so we missed the connection also on, I think, one of the deep over routes. So that's one of the things that he's just awesome at. So making sure we nail those two, John, where it goes. But I think he was, probably somewhere near around 10 touches, somewhere into that space. So I thought that's a good start to things for sure.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel, instant impact for the Commanders. Take a listen to this from ESPN's Laura Rutledge and ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky on ESPN's NFL Live on Monday afternoon.
Dan, what do you make of Deebo's debut?
I saw impact. I saw the way that he was used in San Francisco to help others. Sometimes it was motion, and then you saw Jayden Daniels on the outside of some of those zone runs. Sometimes it's that spinner stuff where he gets back around behind the quarterback, and then they can run some of their spinner run game. We saw the reverse. Laura, you mentioned he had 77 yards, but 44 of those came after he touched the football. It was vintage Deebo, and Washington gets that version. That's a massive upgrade for their offense.
When it came to Deebo Samuel's touchdown run on Sunday afternoon, 1st and 10 for the Commanders at the Giants' 19, Deebo had a 19-yard shotgun handoff end-around touchdown run with 7:09 left in the fourth quarter. Deebo broke through multiple attempted tackles en route to the front left corner of the end zone. But also on the play were terrific blocks by left tackle Laremy Tunsil, running back Jacory Croskey-Merritt, and receiver Luke McCaffrey. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Zavala of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Going back to Deebo, his touchdown where you got literally 3-4 guys all blocking in unison, even Laremy Tunsil down the field. I mean, what did you see from that? And how did you think those guys did in blocking?
Yeah, I would definitely want Laremy being my bodyguard, leading the way out front onto that play. You saw Biotic out. I think it might have been Bill out in front. But that's the type of things that, can make difficult to defend, because defending the wide parts of the field, Nikki, as well as down the field shots, that's what makes, defending an offense difficult when it's, laterally and, down the field. So to be able to get the edge, there's some certain things you got to do. I think it was a good, down block by Bates, I'm sure, to, pin a defensive end, inside. So having the different schemes, and he just has a unique way about him. And we have a couple players that have some uniqueness to them. I thought, Eckler has some of that uniqueness when he gets the ball and can make things happen. But it was very cool to see that.
Yes, it was. Commanders receivers in the win over the Giants beyond Deebo Samuel. Terry McLaurin had 2 receptions for 27 yards on 4 targets and playing on 79% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. So he did play a good bit. He seemingly was not on a workload limit off his holdout and hold in. Noah Brown had 2 receptions for 27 yards and 3 targets. He also committed a penalty. He played on 47% of the Commanders' offensive snaps, so he was on a workload limit. Jalen Lane had 1 reception for 11 yards on 2 targets. He also had a drop. He played on 30% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Luke McCaffrey had no targets and playing on 7% of the Commanders' offensive snaps, a total of just 5 offensive snaps. And the Commanders on Saturday afternoon announced having elevated receiver Chris Moore from the practice squad for this game. Moore had 1 reception for 34 yards on 1 target and playing on 27% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. So note, Chris Moore played more than Luke McCaffrey did. Played a lot more than Luke McCaffrey did, even though McCaffrey is on the 53-man roster and Moore is on the practice squad. Props to Luke McCaffrey for his blocking on the Deebo Samuel touchdown run. But man, McCaffrey's stock as a receiver does not appear to be especially high right now. As for Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, and for why Chris Moore was elevated for this game, we on Monday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig and Dan Quinn.
And just what do you think of Terry playing, obviously after missing all that time? And was Chris Moore elevated in part because you weren't maybe sure what Terry or Noah would be able to do in terms of reps?
Yeah, we had a plan for what we would do with them, and knowing that Terry, was able to do more than Noah was going into it. So that was part of the reasoning with Chris. But it was good to see Terry look, comfortable and back in his, normal routine. And he was about as close to full as you can get. And so it was really cool to see him back into it. We didn't get to hit it on the big one, which I thought would have just lit the place on fire, to have an 80-yarder, but we didn't hit it. And I thought we were just off on a couple of plays that, we could have broke some and we didn't. So we got work to do.
Yes, you do. By the way, no Kendrick Bourne for the Commanders. We on Monday afternoon had the reports that he is signing with the San Francisco 49ers. Bourne had a tryout with the Commanders last Tuesday. A veteran NFL receiver spent the last 4 seasons with the New England Patriots, spent his first 4 NFL seasons with the Niners, who signed him as an undrafted free agent out of Eastern Washington in 2017. He was with the Niners during Commanders general manager Adam Peters' time with the Niners as an executive. Commanders tight ends in the win over the Giants. Zach Ertz had 3 receptions for 26 yards and a touchdown on 5 targets. He also drew 2 penalties, but he did have 2 drops. He played on 64% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. John Bates had no targets and playing on 53% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Ben Sinnott had no targets and playing on 11% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Colson Yankoff had no targets and playing on 6% of the Commanders' offensive snaps, a total of just 4 offensive snaps. Commanders running backs in the win over the Giants. Jacory Croskey-Merritt, a.k.a. Bill, 10 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown. No receptions on 1 target, played on 33% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 79.3. He, per the NFL's Next Gen Stats, averaged a whopping 3.91 rushing yards over expected per attempt. Quite the NFL regular season debut for Bill, a player taken in the 7th round of the 2025 NFL Draft. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between John Keim and Dan Quinn.
On Jacory Croskey-Merritt, what stood out most about him?
Just, I think the readiness to go and play. He's really put the time in to go, and so I thought he's got a lot of reps with the guys going through it. So I thought just readiness. Like everybody's a little nervous for that first game that you get to go play, and so for him, you could feel he was really prepared, really ready, and it wasn't too big. That was really cool to see.
All right. Also with Commanders running backs in the win over the Giants, Austin Eckler, 6 carries, 26 yards, 3 receptions, 31 yards on 3 targets. He played on 47% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Jeremy McNichols had 4 carries for 25 yards and was not targeted in the passing game. He played on 19% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. The Commanders in this game as a team, 32 carries for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. And a big part of that, of course, the offensive line, which played well. The offensive line did well against that fearsome Giants defensive line. The Commanders starting offensive line for the win over the Giants. Laremy Tunsil at left tackle, Brandon Coleman at left guard, Tyler Biadasz at center, Nick Allegretti at right guard, Josh Conerly Jr. at right tackle. Each of the Commanders' 5 starting offensive linemen played on 100% of the team's offensive snaps. Tunsil for the game had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 79. As for Josh Conerly in his NFL regular season debut, we on Monday afternoon had this back and forth between Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network and Dan Quinn.
Coach, after watching the film a little bit, what was your impression of Josh Conerly out there? And as you get ready for a guy like Micah, how can you take what he learned in week 1 to week 2?
Yeah, there's definitely things that you can, pull, Mitch, when you're going from like first time to the next one to go. And it's kind of why you see, like, honestly, the rookies like grow fast, because they're able to apply the lessons from one to the next. And Josh is pretty fortunate, man, to see like him on the sideline, and in between series, he's visiting with Wiley, so they're just, not backing off of the brotherhood to him to help him in any way. And then as you get into the next opponent, you look, you study, you watch it, and then that's how you just keep reloading it. So he's learning the process, really, even as we're going through, like, how do you go about preparing for a game? Like the difference between like watching film and studying film. You hear coaches say, hey, watch the film. Like, what the hell does that mean? It's, what are you looking for specifically? What's the thing the tell? What are you trying to find? What can you measure against it? And so learning how to do those things, Mitch, that helps, because you're finding out what a player's strengths is, and yours, and then try like hell to not put yourself in a spot that allows him to, use his strengths against you. And as an offensive lineman or any player in that spot, you don't want to fight any fair fights. You want to make sure you got the right leverage, the right techniques, and to beat that player. So it's really important.
You mentioned Micah's speed being pretty unique, but having an opportunity to start with Brian Burns and work with Vaughn and practice, guys who are quick, how much does that help him? And is that something that can get better from week 1 to week 2 when it's such a short week?
Yeah, you can get better. For sure you can. And it does matter. Like, Burns is an excellent rusher. And, we see, like you said, Vaughn here in practice. And all those reps, they just count, man. You just keep putting it into the whole thing, and then that's where, like, the experience comes. That's also life in the NFL as a tackle, like the matchups, the people. And so you grow, you fight. And you know what? He got beat some too. And that's part of growing and learning. And, all right, he blocked really well a lot of times too. There was some excellent protection, and then there's times you get beat, and that happens, and then you get back up, you go do it again, and kind of pointing to the resilience piece of people at that spot. That's really important too.
All right, so Dan Quinn admitting that Josh Conerly did have a mixed first NFL regular season game. If you are a Commanders fan and you are on Instagram, make sure that you're following WSH on the Daily. The handle is at WSH on the Daily. WSH on the Daily provides outstanding daily Commanders coverage. The page is updated every day, always has a great fresh look. WSH on the Daily just started in 2021 and yet has well over 43,000 followers. So you learn a lot by following WSH on the Daily. You are entertained quite a bit by following WSH on the Daily. If you're on Instagram, check out WSH on the Daily. The handle is at WSH on the Daily. And check out WSH on the Daily's online shop, WSHonthedaily.com. Some terrific gear, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, excellent materials, modern looks. So for smart, informative, fun, and engaging Commanders content, check out WSH on the Daily on Instagram. And for great merch, visit WSHonthedaily.com. Let's talk Commanders defense off the regular season opening 21-6 win over the New York Giants at Northwest Stadium on Sunday afternoon, and off head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon. The Commanders defense in this game was superb. Consider this game marked the first time that Washington did not allow a touchdown by the Giants in a Washington home game since December 3rd, 2000, a game, incidentally, that the Redskins lost. A 9-7 loss in what was Norv Turner's final game as Skins head coach. He got fired after that game. Dan Quinn, during the opening statement of his press conference on Monday afternoon, sung the praises of the defense.
I thought after going through it last night and again this morning, a lot to clean up. But one thing, man, that I really appreciate was, kind of the attack tone and nature of the defense, especially down in the low red zone. Coming off of last season, there were some things we really wanted to improve on. And trust and believe that every coach and player was trying to elevate that part of it. And I know it's just a first glimpse, but I'm excited to see them grow as a defense and see where we can take it. I talked to you about identity and how we play is the most important thing. That's even over what we play, meaning a call. So that becomes identity. But you got to really do it over and over again. So I was pleased to see that, and glad to get it rocking with you guys, whether you want to hit on the game or Green Bay, ready to get rolling.
Well, Commanders at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football this Thursday night at 8:15. The Packers, in their regular season opening 27-13 win over the Detroit Lions on Sunday, had a mixed game offensively, but the Packers also barely had the ball in the game. They lost the time of possession battle by 10 minutes, 50 seconds, ran just 47 offensive plays to the Lions' 65. The Packers averaged 5.66 yards per play and went 4 for 10 on third downs. But Packers quarterback Jordan Love, he had a very good game in terms of the ESPN total QBR metric, 92.1 as of games through Sunday. That's outstanding. This game on Thursday night is a big test of how improved the Commanders' defense truly is. It was so good to see the defense dominate the Giants, but the Giants are not expected to be a good team. Their QB1, Russell Wilson, is a fading quarterback, and they were without their number one left tackle, Andrew Thomas, due to injury. How is the Commanders' defense going to do at the Pack this Thursday night? The best thing about the Commanders' defense in the win over the Giants was the defensive line, which provided an excellent pass rush and stuffed the run. Regarding the pass rush, the Commanders, per the NFL's next-gen stats, pressured Russell Wilson on 22 of his 45 dropbacks for a pressure rate of 48.9%. And the Commanders did this while primarily rushing 4. The team's blitz rate per True Media was just 26.7%. Impressive work by the Commanders' interior defensive linemen. The star was Javon Kinlaw. He played on 59% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 89.7. Deron Payne, he played on 66% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. He, for the game, had an overall grade per PFF of 77.1. Eddie Goldman, he played on 38% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. He, for the game, had an overall grade per PFF of 84. Johnny Newton played on 38% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. But 2 free agent acquisitions from this past offseason as part of the revamping of the defensive line. Javon Kinlaw and Eddie Goldman doing very well in their Commanders' regular season debuts. And yes, Deron Payne, off back-to-back disappointing seasons, off his monster 2022 contract season, did very well. Contract season, Deron Payne. Was good to see that guy again, wasn't it? Commanders' edge defenders in the win over the Giants. Dietrich Wise Jr., he played on 59% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. He was another free agent acquisition from this past offseason who did well in his Commanders' regular season debut. Here was Dan Quinn on Monday afternoon on Dietrich Wise.
With Wise, I thought he made a really good first impression as a Commander. He's tough, man. He's square. He's strong. All the things that we saw in practice. But the play that probably sticks out to me the most was on down in the red zone. There was a quick throw out to Neighbors. Quan came up to make a tackle. He didn't get it, but you really saw Wise just hauling ass out of the stack and making a tackle. That's finishing. That's effort. So that was like my favorite play for him from the game.
All right. Also with Commanders' edge defenders in the win over the Giants, Dorrance Armstrong played on 59% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Von Miller, 41%. Jacob Martin, 41%. Javonte Jean-Baptiste was a healthy inactive. Commanders' linebackers in the win over the Giants. Bobby Wagner played on 100% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. This is his age 35 season. He is right back to playing on 100% of his team's defensive snaps. Frankie Luvu played on 100% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. And that was basically it in terms of Commanders linebackers playing on defense in this game. Jordan McGee played on 3% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, a total of just 2 defensive snaps. Nick Bellore did not play on any of the Commanders' defensive snaps, did play on special teams. Kane Medrano was a healthy inactive. Ale Cajo was a healthy inactive. Commanders cornerbacks in the win over the Giants. Mikey Sainristil played on 91% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Marshawn Lattimore played on 85% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Trey Amos played on 78% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Jonathan Jones played on 12% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Noah Igbenogany played on 7% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, a total of just 5 defensive snaps. Interesting that Sainristil played the most Hurst, not Lattimore. And as I suspected, with everyone healthy, Jonathan Jones was an odd man out. He is, in fact, the number 4 cornerback. The top 3 clearly are Marshawn Lattimore, Micah Sainristil, and Trey Amos, and I guess not necessarily in that order. And Commander safeties in the win over the Giants. Quan Martin played on 100% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Will Harris played on 99% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, and he in his Commanders' regular season debut did well. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 84.1. Jeremy Reeves played on 16% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Tyler Owens played on 6% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, a total of just 4 defensive snaps. Percy Butler played on 1% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, a total of just 1 defensive snap. How about that? Both Reeves and Owens played more than Butler did. As you may recall, defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. during a post-practice press conference on August 15th said that Jeremy Reeves, not Percy Butler, was the Commanders' number 3 safety. Well, in this game, Butler was the team's number 5 safety. But the secondary played well. Russell Wilson for the game had a completion percentage of just 45.95 and a yards per pass attempt of just 4.54. Those are horrendous stats for a quarterback. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between Donna Hopkins of Pro Football Plus and Dan Quinn.
Looking at the back end of the defense, your quarterback room and your safeties, they look like they were stingy. They weren't giving up anything. What did you see from those guys?
I like it. Stingy. That is exactly how I felt. I knew we would be challenged. The quarterback, Russ, is just fantastic at throwing deep balls. So we knew that's part of, going against them, that, and especially with, Neighbors and Robinson, who've got real speed to get outside, Slayton as well. So that was going to be the challenge. And so I was pleased to see him battle and go for it. I know we had one foul, I believe with Trey on one. Like, those ones we'll coach our way through, Donna, as we're going to learn. But I was pleased to see them. I thought there was a really good tackle also by Will that, really square, and made a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd down and 2, and the team ended up winning the next play. So that tackle that was, just there wasn't any yards after the contact. I thought just a really good tackling demonstration. So, in our first time all together, I thought the tackling was on point. I thought the DBs and the corners specifically really took to the challenge of what was going to happen on the outside.
Yeah, Will Harris had a forced fumble on Russell Wilson, who, keep in mind, Dan Quinn knows well. Quinn was the Seattle Seahawks defensive coordinator January 2013 to February 2015, so the 2013 and 2014 seasons. So those were 2 of Russell Wilson's best seasons as the Seahawks QB1. All right, football season is underway. Summer grilling season may be winding down, but fall grilling season is coming. Now is the perfect time to get yourself or someone who you care about Omaha Steaks, and here is a great deal for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during Omaha Steaks' Red Hot Sale event, and for an extra $35 off, use the promo code Al Galdi at checkout. Omaha Steaks food is outstanding. Steaks, chicken, hamburgers, hot dogs, delicious desserts. All of it is so good. We just had the beef sirloin tips for the first time. Amazing. To all of my fellow meatheads trying to pack on muscle, get your protein from Omaha Steaks. There's no risk. Every bite is backed by a 100% guarantee, and you're supporting one of this country's great companies. Omaha Steaks is a family-owned company that has been America's original butcher since 1917. Treat yourself and your family or someone who you care about to Omaha Steaks and take advantage of the great deal for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during Omaha Steaks' Red Hot Sale event, and for an extra $35 off, use the promo code Al Galdi at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with the promo code Al Galdi at checkout. See site for details. Well, make it 6 wins in 7 games for the Nationals, all in this month of September. The Nats are 6-1 in this September. Monday evening, a 15-7 win at the Miami Marlins in Game 1 of a 4-game series. This was a game for which the official attendance at Lone Depot Park was 7,992. And I stress the word official. It looked like there were about 6 people at Lone Depot Park. But those 6 people witnessed quite the offensive showing by the Nats, who in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 59-84. Worst record in the National League East, second worst record in the National League. But yeah, the Nats now are 6-1 in this September. This game was batting practice for the Nats. They scored 15 runs, totaled 19 hits, worked 4 walks, went 9 for 20 with runners in scoring position. The 19 hits were 4 home runs, 4 doubles, and 11 singles. The Nats scored at least 1 run in 6 of the 9 innings, including scoring 6 runs in the top of the 5th. Josh Bell had 6 RBI. He is the Nats starting first baseman and number 3 batter, went 4 for 6 with 2 2-run homers and 2 RBI singles. But multiple key young Nats players did well. Dylan Cruz, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 8 batter, went 3 for 5 with a 3-run homer, an RBI single, and another single. Cruz in that Nats 6-run 5th had a 2-out, 3-run homer to left field for an 8-1 Nats lead. The homer went a projected 409 feet per Statcast. Boy, did Dylan Cruz need a good game. Cruz came into this game with the following stats at the major league level for this regular season: 250 plate appearances, OPS of just 612. Now, he missed nearly 3 months due to a left oblique strain, but the results when he has played just had not been that good. This, in many ways, has felt like a lost season for Dylan Cruz, who the Nats took with the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 MLB draft out of LSU, but he on Monday evening was very good. James Wood, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, went 3 for 5 with 2 doubles, an RBI single, and a walk. CJ Abrams, he is the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 2 for 5 with 2 doubles. Luis Garcia Jr., he is the Nats starting second baseman and number 5 batter, went 2 for 4 with a solo homer, a single, and 2 walks. Garcia in the Nats 1-run second had a leadoff first pitch homer to right field for a 1-0 Nats lead. The homer went a projected 413 feet per Statcast. The Nats top 4 qualified players in OPS for this regular season all had good games on Monday evening. Number 1, James Wood, 826. Number 2, CJ Abrams, 778. Number 3, Josh Bell, 728. Number 4, Luis Garcia Jr., 721. The Nats starting pitcher in this 15-7 win at the Marlins on Monday evening was Cade Cavalli. He did not have his best stuff, but he was effective. He allowed 2 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were 2 doubles and 4 singles. He issued 1 walk. He recorded just 1 strikeout, but he did throw a lot of strikes. 61 pitches, 41 strikes, just 20 balls. So the Nats are trying to get Cavalli through to the end of the season off him having undergone Tommy John surgery on his right elbow in March 2023. So that's why he was pulled after just 61 pitches. But a second consecutive good outing by Cavalli against the Marlins. This off him allowing 8 runs, 7 earned in 2 1/3 innings in the Nats' 11-2 loss at the New York Yankees on August 27th. Cavalli in the Nats' 5-2 win over the Marlins at Nationals Park last Tuesday evening, September 2nd. 2 runs in 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk. A negative for the Nats in this 15-7 win at the Marlins on Monday evening was the bullpen. 2 Nats relievers combined to allow 5 runs in 4 innings. Orlando Rebolta tossed 2 scoreless and hitless innings with 2 strikeouts. He did issue 3 walks, so all of which came in the scoreless bottom of the 7th. Shinosuke Ogasawara allowed 5 runs in 2 innings. He gave up 2 home runs, a double, and a single, and issued 2 walks. Also with the Nats, bad news on catcher Keibert Ruiz. The Nats have pulled him from his minor league rehab assignment as he has experienced a recurrence of mild headaches. Not good. The Nats on June 24th announced having placed Ruiz on the 10-day injured list with a head contusion. The Nats on June 27th announced having transferred Ruiz to the 7-day concussion injured list. The Nats on July 4th announced having reinstated Ruiz from the 7-day concussion injured list. But the Nats on July 8th announced having placed Ruiz back on the 7-day concussion injured list, retroactive to July 6th, and he has been on that 7-day concussion injured list ever since. This is becoming a concerning situation. No, Keibert Ruiz has not been a good player for the Nats, but we certainly wish him the best. Game 2 for the Nats at the Marlins, Tuesday evening at 6:40. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Wednesday show, episode 1152. We'll include a lot for you on the Commanders. Also on Wednesday show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats are at the Miami Marlins Tuesday evening at 6:40 in Game 2 of a 4-game series. The O's are home to the Pittsburgh Pirates Tuesday evening at 6:35 in Game 1 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Yeah, I would definitely want Laremy being my bodyguard, leading the way out front.